Okay, I want to start today with a feeling that I think every single person listening right now has felt.
Oh, yeah.
Probably in the last year, maybe even, in the last week. It's that desperate, almost vibrating desire to just be picked.
The universal human condition, that choose me energy.
Exactly. It's so primal. Whether you're refreshing your email, waiting for a job offer after like 5 insane rounds of interviews, or you're waiting for an award nomination, or, and this is the big one, you're sitting across from someone in a crowded room just hoping they decide, yes, this is the person I want. We crave that moment. We totally script it in our
We
heads.
do. We expect the fireworks. We expect the Rocky theme song to start playing in the background. It's supposed to feel like a victory lap.
Right. You get the job, you get the ring, the acceptance letter. It's pure triumph.
Type.
But, and this is the twist we are diving into today, what happens when getting exactly what you wanted doesn't actually feel like a victory? What if, instead of standing tall, you feel yourself starting to shrink?
What if the dream come true is actually the exact moment you start losing your footing?
Today, we are unpacking a really profound and, frankly, a slightly haunting essay by the writer and philosopher Pedro Malha. It's called Feeling Chosen and Losing Ground. And I have to tell you, I read this and I literally had to put my phone down and just stare at a wall for like 10 minutes. It completely flips the script on success.
It really does, because Mala isn't writing about failure. He's writing about the specific, quiet, and often unnoticed emotional shift that happens the moment we get the validation we've been starving for.
Which is usually when we think the story's over
Yes.
and they lived happily ever after.
Exactly. But Maha argues that's actually where the trouble starts. His whole point is that being chosen isn't usually experienced as a triumph, it's experienced as relief.
Okay.
And he makes this incredibly nuanced argument that this relief, it carries a hidden cost, a subtle loss of ground.
That phrase, losing ground, is what hooked me. Because logically, being chosen should give you more ground, right? You've
Yeah.
arrived.
You'd think so.
You have the title, the relationship, the validation. But he suggests we're actually losing our footing the moment we say yes. So our mission for this deep dive is to trace what he calls this emotional geometry. We're going to look at why validation can feel more like a ledge than a floor, and how we can accidentally thin ourselves out of gratitude.
Thinning. That is such a precise word for it. It implies you don't break, you just become less.
So let's get into the experience itself. Malha starts by describing the moment the news comes in. You get the call or the proposal. And he says it doesn't come with a brass band.
No, and this is really important context. Mala points out that usually being chosen comes after a long period of not being chosen.
Right.
Maybe you've been unemployed for 6 months, or single for 6 years, or just feeling totally invisible. You've been holding your breath for a very, very long time. So when the moment arrives, the main emotion isn't excitement, it's the suspension of fear.
That just hit me so hard. It's not that you're suddenly confident. It's just that the terrifying question, am I wanted, has finally been answered. It feels like rest, like you can finally put your bags down.
Precisely. It's a pause. And that is where the trap is set. Malha writes that we mistake this proof, the proof that we're lovable or employable, for safety.
We think, okay, the struggle is over. I can relax now.
But safety doesn't necessarily follow recognition. In fact, Malha argues the opposite happens. The recognition actually sharpens your awareness of how easily it could all be taken away.
Because now you have something to lose.
Exactly. Before you were chosen, you had nothing to lose but hope. Now you have the prize. And this is where Malha introduces the ledge analogy, which I think is, it's the central image of the entire essay.
I love this visual. Walk us through the ledge.
So, okay, imagine the chosen position not as a wide open field, but as a ledge, high up on a cliff face.
Okay.
When you're on the ground, before you were chosen, you can walk anywhere, you can trip, you can stumble, run in circles, it doesn't matter.
We're on the ground.
You're on the ground. But once you're elevated to that chosen status, you're way up high.
And once you're high up, falling becomes an imaginable threat for the very first time.
Simply because you're now high enough to fall. So your focus shifts entirely. You're not looking at the view, you aren't looking at the horizon, you're looking at your feet.
Wow.
You're focused entirely on staying on the ledge.
Which changes everything about how you move. If I'm on a ledge, I'm not dancing. I'm not taking big risks. I am pressing my back against the wall.
And that pressing against the wall, that right there is the mechanism of losing ground. It's a shift in gravity. Malha describes it as the center of gravity shifting away from the self and toward the maintenance of being chosen.
Okay, I want to dig into this mechanism
Yeah.
because I think it's easy to hear this and think, oh, so I just become paranoid. But Mala is talking about something much more subtle. It's not like you're walking around shaking.
No, and that's why it's so insidious. It's not a crisis. It often looks like virtue. It looks like care.
What do you mean?
Well, he lists the symptoms. A slight adjustment in your tone to match the other person, a willingness to accommodate a schedule change, even when it's a huge pain for you.
Smoothing over a moment of awkwardness before it even fully forms.
Exactly.
I read that list, and I wanted to argue with it for a second. I thought, wait, isn't that just being a good partner or a professional employee? Adaptability is a skill.
It is, and that's the defense mechanism talking. It feels human. It feels like care. But beneath that attentiveness, Malha argues that something else is happening. You're not just adapting, you are beginning to thin yourself. You're removing the parts of your personality that might cause a little friction.
He uses the phrase thinning through consent.
Mm.
That is haunting to me. It implies we are doing it to ourselves. We're not being bullied into this.
That is maybe the most crucial insight in the whole essay. You aren't being forced into a box. You are building the box yourself and climbing right inside. It grows out of what Mala calls an unspoken contract.
Okay, break that down. The unspoken contract.
Well, if someone has chosen you, especially if you felt unchosen for a long time, you feel this unarticulated responsibility to remain choosable. You implicitly agree to maintain the conditions under which you were picked in the first place.
That's the key right there. Remaining choosable. You start reading between the lines. You ask yourself, how much of this choice depends on me staying exactly as I was in the interview? Or how much room is there for me to have a bad day? Or, a bad month?
You basically become an actuary of your own personality. You're constantly calculating risk. If I make this sarcastic joke, is it too weird?
If I push back on this strategy, will they regret hiring me?
If I show my partner that I'm actually really messy, will they change their mind?
Yeah. It reminds me of that feeling when you start a new job and you don't complain about anything for the first 6 months. You become a simulation of a person. A very smooth, frictionless simulation.
Frictionless is the perfect word. You sandpaper off your own edges. But Malha goes deeper into why we do this. He talks about the role of your history. This whole thing hits harder if you have what he calls old absences.
Right. If you have a history of rejection.
If you've dealt with a lot of rejection or loneliness or career stagnation, this new choice lands differently. It doesn't just land as an opportunity, it lands on old wounds. It feels like a correction to all those years you wondered if you were lacking something.
It's validation with a capital V.
Yeah.
It's the universe finally saying, you're okay, you're valid.
And because it feels like a correction, like the solution to your life's central problem, it just acquires this immense weight. You aren't just protecting a job or a relationship, you are protecting the answer to your life's unanswered question.
Which makes the stakes feel like life or death, psychologically.
Absolutely.
So of course you're going to thin yourself. You'd cut off an arm to keep that feeling of safety. If you've been starving and someone gives you a banquet, you are going to have perfect table manners. You are not going to risk spilling the soup.
Not a drop. And this leads to the concept of asymmetry. Mala talks about how even in the best scenarios, there's a power imbalance just inherent in being chosen.
That's so uncomfortable to admit, especially in romantic relationships where we want to think everything is 50-50.
I know. But he points out that in this specific dynamic, one person chose and the other was chosen. Even if it's mutual in reality, if you are the one who feels like you are waiting, you carry the memory of that wait.
The one who was chosen carries the knowledge of the alternative. You remember the cold. And that knowledge lingers. It colors how you see everything.
It orients you. Mala says validation orients you to face the source of the recognition.
So instead of looking inward for your stability.
You develop a habit of looking toward the chooser, like a sunflower facing the sun, but, out of fear instead of growth. You're constantly checking, are they still smiling? Is the approval still there?
And that orientation creates what Malha calls the background hum. I love this description because it explains why this isn't a panic attack. It's not a siren wailing in your ear.
No, sirens you can react to. A siren creates action. You run, you hide, you fight. That just creates chronic stress. It's a low-level monitoring system running in the back of your brain.
You almost stop noticing it.
You do. It consumes energy, but it's like the hum of a refrigerator. You only notice it when it stops.
What does the hum sound like in practice, though? If I'm listening to this, how do I know if I have the hum?
It sounds like micro-decisions. It's the thought you decide not to voice in a meeting because you don't want to be difficult. It's the desire you soften, oh, I don't mind where we eat, when actually you really want pizza, but you don't want to start something.
It's the disagreement you decide to put off until later, but later never comes.
It's death by a thousand cuts. It's adaptation. Malha emphasizes that it doesn't feel like you are being erased. It just feels like you are adapting to a new environment.
But adaptation always involves loss.
Even voluntary adaptation involves loss. Mala writes that you are trading your internal solidity, that feeling of standing on your own terms, for the feeling of standing on terms approved by someone else. You become slightly contingent. Your footing depends on that ongoing approval.
And the craziest thing is, from the outside, you look like you're winning. You have the corner office, the partner, the award. Mala calls it the loneliness of success.
It's incredibly lonely. Because who can you tell? If you try to tell a friend, hey, I finally got that promotion I've been crying about for 3 years, but I feel smaller, they'd look at you like you're crazy.
They'd say, oh, you're suffering from success. Stop complaining. Or, that's just imposter syndrome. Get over it.
Exactly. The narrative is that being chosen is the end point. It's the happy ending, so expressing any unease doesn't fit the script. But Mala emphasizes that relief and unease can coexist. They almost always do.
The relief says, I am wanted.
And the unease says, I could lose this. And both of those feelings are totally rational responses to the situation.
I want to pivot to a really important point in the essay, because I can hear listeners thinking, okay, so a person who chose me is controlling me. My boss is toxic. My partner is a manipulator. But Malha stops that line of thinking immediately.
This is so vital, and it's what makes the essay so intellectually honest. He is crystal clear. There is no villain here. The chooser is not necessarily manipulative or malicious or even aware that this is happening.
They might love you. They might think you're doing a great job. They might be wondering why you've gotten so quiet lately.
They probably do. This dynamic emerges from the emotional geometry of the situation, from the asymmetry, the timing, your history of waiting, and your own emotional need. It arises in the space between people, not from abuse.
That almost makes it harder to deal with. If there was a villain, you could just fight back. If your boss was a tyrant, you could quit and feel righteous about it. But here, you're often surrounded by warmth and respect. You're being treated well, and yet you're still shrinking.
That is exactly why it is so disorienting. There's no obvious threat to push against. It's just a quiet erosion. Malha describes the outcome not as a breakup or a firing, but as a general flattening. You might not even notice it's happening for months, maybe years. You just feel less vivid, less spontaneous, more aware of your own edges.
A general flattening. That is such a sad image. It's like you lose your color saturation. You just become a beige version of yourself.
And you become boring. That's the real irony. The quirks, the spark, the opinions that got you chosen in the first place, you sand them all down to be safe, which makes you less of the person they actually wanted. You become a generic version of the chosen one.
So the million-dollar question, we've diagnosed the illness. We know about the ledge, the thinning, the hum. How do we fix it? Does Malha tell us to just choose ourselves? Because if I see that on one more Instagram quote card, I think I might scream.
You are safe. Yeah. He actually explicitly rejects that advice.
Oh, good.
He says phrases like choose yourself are tempting because they offer clarity, they sound empowering, but they simplify a really complex human tension. They turn a lived experience into a catchy slogan, and Malha just refuses to do that.
So he doesn't say quit the job or leave the relationship. There's no flip the table moment.
No. He acknowledges the reality that sometimes this dynamic just stabilizes. The person learns to live with less internal space. It becomes a new normal. You just exist on the ledge.
Wow.
Or sometimes the ground continues to erode until just standing becomes an effort, and the whole thing collapses under the weight of that silence.
That is bleak, but honest.
It is. But the essay isn't hopeless. Its goal is simply to name the pattern.
And there's real power in just naming it, right? Because otherwise you just think you're going crazy. You think, I have everything I wanted. Why do I feel less like myself?
Precisely. The value of the essay is in recognizing that affirmation and loss can occupy the same space. You can be deeply grateful for being chosen and also feel the loss of your own solidity, acknowledging that contradiction is the first step to seeing the ledge for what it is.
It's about noticing that background hum we talked about. If you can hear the hum, you can maybe turn the volume down. Or at least stop pretending it's music.
Or at least stop mistaking the hum for your own personality. Malha writes that to remain with this contradiction is uncomfortable. It doesn't offer a clear path forward. but it allows you to see that the ground beneath being chosen is not always firm.
Losing ground doesn't always feel like falling.
Sometimes it feels like standing perfectly still while something essential just quietly shifts.
It's a story about care and maintenance, not weakness. I think that's so important to reiterate. If you feel this, it's not because you're weak or foolish, it's the cost of caring. You care about the position you're in, so you adjust to keep it.
And that adjustment is natural. The desire to belong, to be selected, it's woven into our biology. We're social creatures. Leaning towards stability is not a mistake. But we have to be aware of what we are trading for, that stability. Are we trading our actual selves for a secure spot on the ledge?
This has been a heavy one, but a necessary one. I think a lot of people needed to hear this today. As we wrap up this deep dive into Pedro Malha's feeling chosen and losing ground, I think the biggest takeaway for me is about the nature of validation itself. We chase it, we crave it, but we rarely examine what it does to our center of gravity.
We treat validation as a destination. I'll be happy when I get there. But Malha shows us it's actually a force that reorients us. It points us away from ourselves and towards the person doing the choosing.
I want to leave you with a thought to mull over today.
Mm-hmm.
If you are currently in a position where you feel chosen, maybe you're the new favorite at work, or you're in a relationship you used to dream about, try to get quiet for a second. Listen for that background hum we just talked about.
Ask yourself, are you adapting to fit the ledge? Is the safety you feel actually just the suppression of who you were before the choice was even made?
And if the answer is yes, don't panic. Just notice it. Sometimes, just seeing the ledge is the first step to finding the floor again. Thanks for diving deep with us today.
It was a pleasure.
We'll see you next time.